Good afternoon, everybody. Well, today we're going to give you a once-over on our 1996 GMC Jimmy, which us at Cool Meadows Motorsports and a lot of my friends and followers refer to it as the Plum. Basically, what you're looking at is a heavily modified 1996 GMC Jimmy, based there, built off the S10 platform, or I guess in GMC terms, S15. Ours is a four-door, and as you can tell, I mean, it looks kind of goofy. We did chop the rear roof line off behind the rear passenger seats. Powertrain, it is a 4.3 liter V6, pretty much stock engine. It does have a mild HP Tuners tune I threw on it just to get rid of some certain components that were no longer needed and allow the ECU to not freak out about it. Mated to that is a 4L60E automatic transmission, rebuilt by a guy local to us, and it's shifted by a Rad Designs electronic shift kit that basically eliminates the transmission controller, so it's manually shifted without a full manual valve body. And that's done through a Winters gated shifter. Then behind the transmission we have pretty basic, it's a NP241c transfer case out of like a late 80s, early 90s Blazer Suburban. They're actually passenger drop 241s. Aluminum case, 6 planetary, pretty stout chain driven case, and we put a JB Customs SYE on it. Recent update, as you can see, we recently back halved this thing, chopped the frame off right under the rear passenger seats, built full custom frame out of 2x4 3/16 square tube, and then proceeded to do a triangulated 4-link on the rear. We're running a 3.0 4-tube 14-inch travel King bypass shock in the back, and then for right now we're running a 2.5-inch diameter Fox coilover. I'd like to eventually have just all King product on this as money and time allows.
More money?
That 4-link is locating a 14-bolt full float rear axle, and which has 538 gears and welded. Then, as you can see, it's got newer body panels all around except for the rear quarter panels. This rear quarter panel was already in pretty rough shape, and then we made it even worse with a mild rollover on back door. Eventually we're gonna probably do a body swap on this thing with another S10, but we're running along with the rear axle, front axle is a Kingpin Dana 60 538s. That actually has a Nitro Pro gear set in it, and stock inner shafts, Yukon chromoly stub shafts on the outers, and Yukon hardcore locking hubs. Was on both sides. At King of the Hammers, we did break a driver front stub shaft, which exploded the faceplate off the Yukon hub. The hub itself was fine. It's just the retention ring and the faceplate did not last. What else we got? We have a full Warn Xeon 10S winch. Warn hooked us up back when we were racing. A rigid 20-inch adapt light bar up front. And then a Amazon special light bar up top there. Mounted way too close to the windshield, so it does create a heck of a glare when it's on. We're going to have to fix that. That was new for King of the Hammers this year. On the front, we're running 2.5-inch diameter 14-inch travel King internal bypass shocks. And this is our custom rear bumper we built when we did the back half. Also have a full pack out setup in there. I'll show you here in a little bit. 18-gallon IBEX fuel cell. Then both drive shafts, front and rear, are homemade. The rear was a DIY 4x kit. Excuse me, not DIY 4x, wide open design. Here we got a TK1 Racing sway bar. Very cool sway bar setup, easy to build. A little bit of fabrication involved when you go to set it up, but super happy with their product. Although I think I ordered a slightly too stiff of a sway bar, so I'll have to talk with them and see what we can figure out, maybe lighten that up a little bit. More of our rear quarter panel body damage. So you can see we basically replaced all the doors around the truck before King of the Hammers, put new front fenders and hood on it, new upper portion of the core support. It's now mostly just the headlight portion, everything else is cut out. And proceeded to go ahead and break the new doors in. We wheeled most of the week with the front driver passenger door off. I like to wheel doorless up there for view, but as you can see, the rear passenger doors took a couple hits. Hood took a little bit of damage, and this fender, nice dent there from when we rolled it back door. And like I said earlier, that quarter panel took a pretty hefty beating when most of the truck was laying on that portion of the quarter there, along with the bumper, which we're going to have to tweak back a little bit. And then Sarah put a nice little dent in that door on a rock, I believe on Blueberry, if I'm not mistaken. So she added to the body damage just a little bit, although she likes to blame me because I'm usually spotting when she's driving. I do exactly what you told me to, so she says.
My bad.
So here we got the spare tire pulled off. You can see what we continued to change with the back half when we did it. Full pack out mount. And then we have our IBEX 18-gallon fuel cell, uses a stock GM sending unit, which is pretty sweet because it's basically plug and play with the harness on the S10s. Odyssey batteries mounted on both sides, try and distribute weight out evenly. Built all our own battery cables, ran them up under the fuel cell behind the pack outs. And you can see our shock reservoirs mounted up on the cross tubes. Full stainless exhaust we built. Magnaflow muffler. Tried to route everything up out of the way as best we could, and header wrapped it back here where it comes in kind of close to the coilover, try and keep the heat transferred down, but kept it up, tucked up inside the frame best we can, try and keep it from any rock damage and tire contact and so on, and mounted the muffler all the way in the back. And we're running L-Rod Pro limit straps, mixture between magnitude performance coils and EBOC coils, and 1.25" Heim joints all around on our rear triangulated 4-link. So going up front here, front's a 3-link, again, King coilovers up front. Slowly migrating away from the Barnes joints that we have up front, as they just don't seem to hold up. And then our front drive shaft, complete custom build. It's actually a 1480 joint up there with 2 stub shaft Cs, one welded to a custom flange built by my buddy Peter Cifelli, which mates up to the 1310 transfer case flange, and then down here a 1410 Rockwell flange mated to our Dana 60. We just have some very kind of odd drive shaft angles up front, which is the reason we had to go with this. Our drive line, our engine transmission transfer case combos tilted back a little bit more than most, so we had to compensate for a pretty hefty angle where the drive shaft meets the transfer case. And rear drive shaft, like I said earlier, wide open design kit, They're 1350 kit. It's 2.5-inch diameter quarter wall tube, and just 1350 joints front and rear. It's held up pretty well. Got to say we've landed on it once or twice. But full Barnes truss on our Dana 60. And then we come up front to our steering. Just all tie rods, all rod end, and then we have our drag link is actually using high angle tie rod, 1-ton Chevy tie rod ends just for packaging purposes. Like to change that and eventually get it to be all rod ends up front, but I'm gonna have to probably make a custom built pitman arm in order to be able to do it. Our shot of our rigid adapt light bar again. Would honestly never spend my own money on this thing. It was way too expensive, but a buddy, good friend of ours, won it out at King of the Hammers back in like 2017 or 18 with the rigid poker run, and didn't really have a use for it, so he's kind enough to donate it to the cause, and we've been running it ever since. And I couldn't be happier with the thing. I mean, it's super stout. I've hoisted Jeeps up on the front of my bumper to get them off trail when they're broken, and rub bumpers into that light bar and everything else, and it's held up. But full PSC steering system minus the steering box. Everything else is PSC components: the ram, the pump, and the reservoir. Custom built lines from CMD Incorporated, CMD Performance, Carmen de Coco, otherwise known as Mike, took care of us with those. And then more shots of our steering setup. And used to have a full Barnes, full hydraulic ram mount on the front of that axle. We were trying to set up the 4500 steering system, just didn't end up working out, and went back to a basic steering hydraulic assist steering setup and cut all that stuff out of the way. So what else do we have here? We have, for tire choice, we get a killer deal at Carlisle on these 40-inch Cooper STT Pros. I mean, they're one of the few tires I know of that actually measure out to a true 40-inch tire like their label. They're 40 by 13.5 wide for a 17-inch rim. And in turn, we're running a 17 by 9 Method beadlock, part of the Method race team. So they help us out on that deal. And I don't know, for what the truck is, it works pretty good. Got some stuff we got to work on here in the future. Some updates we're going to make. Front frame took a little bit of a beating. We're going to either have to plate it or do like we did the rear and chop it off and build it from scratch. Leaning towards just throwing some plating on it to reinforce around the engine mount area. But and just some other few oddball items we got to fix, like to clean up body panels a little bit more. Get some headlights that don't just fall off their mounts. Obviously, it's what happens when you get aftermarket junk. And get it fully prepped for the wheeling season. We thought we had it pretty good before we went out to King of the Hammers, and naturally it was pretty fresh build because of what we did to the rear of the truck. So we found out some stuff we got to work out the kinks, so to speak. We get there. So that's it. It's what we like to call the plum.